Welcome back to Badass Women in Business podcast.
Podcast.
We're super excited for our guest today, Valerie Tyson. Valerie, welcome to our podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I can't wait to chat with you guys.
Absolutely, absolutely. We love to start off our podcast with you just introducing yourself to our listeners so they get an
You're
idea of
first.
who you are.
I am. My name's Valerie Tyson, and I am the head of strategy for the Unrivaled Group, which is part of the Real Business Group. You guys, I'm sorry, my dog just barked. Did you hear
It's
that?
okay. It's okay.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'll start over. Sorry, it's just my husband is in there wrangling them. He's not doing a good job.
No worries.
I am the head of strategy and sports for Unrivaled Group, which is a part of Real Business. And I've been in sports and entertainment industry for 20 plus years, and just recently partnered up with some really great people in technology, including the engineer who's responsible for Windows 95. And we've created technology that will help connect women in business, women certified businesses, to more contract opportunities, helping women build their own wealth.
Amazing. A true badass once again, which is why you're on our podcast. So, taking it back to the beginning, what landed you into sports marketing? Because it seems to be I know a lot of people that went into sports marketing, primarily guys. I don't know of many women that landed in sports marketing, so I'm curious to know more about your journey.
Well, what's really interesting is I went to college thinking I was going to be a magazine writer. And then I got into the broadcast track. There weren't enough openings in the print journalism track, and there were two internships possible to get as part of the journalism track. And one was at Camel Country 108 in Phoenix, where I had to wear a camel suit in the Phoenix Zoo at 125 degrees and had 35 ice packs in the camel suit. So it was a delight. And what I learned, it was the number one. And I don't even like country music. I mean, I'm not like opposed to it, but it's not like in my repertoire. And so I had to go out and all these radio stops and wear the camel suit and drive country music stars in cars. And what I learned is they were the number one radio station in the country, and I learned what a good team could do. They became radio station of the year, and so it was an awesome experience, other than the rash from the camel suit. And then yeah, it was not. I've never worn so many ice packs, but rashes in places you wouldn't believe. And then I was recruited to work at a classical radio station in San Diego. And I was a kid from Chicago who had never been to California, and I thought the ocean was like the Santa Monica Pier sign. Like I didn't know, like I had so little knowledge. And I probably made like $15,000 a year, and I worked the front desk, and I was in promotions. And I knew nothing about classical music, so you can imagine how successful that was at setup. But they had season tickets to the San Diego Padres as a trade agreement with the radio station. They trade the baseball team for advertising, and no one at the classical station liked sports. So I didn't make any money, so they just gave me the tickets. And I learned to love the game of baseball. I sat 3 rows up from the field. I watched the Padres go to the World Series, one of the best experiences of my life. And shortly after that, I was recruited to work for Howard Stern and do all of his West Coast events. That was very exciting. Everyone has their own opinions of him, but I've got to tell you, he was one of the most dedicated people I've ever met to his craft. Quiet, respectful, very different than he was on air, and it was one of the experiences of a lifetime. Like the people I got to meet, the things that I saw that I can't talk about were amazing. But the best gift from that experience was our AM sister station. It was KRLA carried the LA Kings hockey games. And they didn't love sports. The people who worked there, they're like, well, Valerie, you seem to know something about sports or like it. Can you work on the LA Kings project? And I met the chief marketing officer for the Kings. And he's like, Valerie, you should work in sports. Like, you're great at this. We're building the Staples Center. Like, literally, like, we got to count the seats in the Staples Center. And they said, there's an arena football team starting here. And this amazing man is starting it, and you should meet with him. And I made a little PowerPoint of what I thought the mascot should look like in the team. It was all wrong, but he said no one put in that much effort. And it was my first real job in sports. And we sold out all 8 of our home games. We sold more beer than the Lakers for an indoor football team. And that's why I really fell in love with sports. And it was about like the art and science of sports. It wasn't just going and watching football. It was like, what do the fans want to be excited? It's indoor football in LA. The weather there's great. Like nobody should have come. And there were no Rams then. There were no Chargers. And the football teams have been rejected from there, but really tuning into what audiences love. And that's why I became super passionate. Like, what knobs can we turn in marketing to really drive audience? From there, I was recruited to work for Michael Jordan and his NBA team, the Charlotte Bobcats, which is amazing, working for the most incredible man to ever play his sport. And in that time, I met and married a Texan, so it was hard to take my Texan out of Texas very often. I came back to Austin, and I worked for a very firm woman who took steroids to be mean to us, to be firm with us, literally. And but what I thought sports was deficient was in digital marketing, right? It was like the beginning of the digital boom, and all my teammates were incredible. Everyone's like, "This is all crazy," but we all love each other and think we're like going places. And all those people now are some of the best startups I've ever seen. Now, like they're all incredible. And from there, I got recruited to be the vice president of global digital for IMG Sports and Entertainment. So IMG is the largest sports and entertainment agency where it has brands, property, and talent. So I got to work on big accounts like Dick's Sporting Goods, Serena Williams, Victor Cruz, the NFL, Marriott Hotels. And it was the most talented group of people I have ever hands down worked with. It was amazing. I got to live in New York City, which I never thought was going to happen. And then my Texan wanted to come back to Austin, so I started my own firm. And then 6 months ago, I paired up with these wonderful engineers and software tech people to try to connect women to more opportunities, not only in sports, but in business. So we have AI software that vets with like women and data to help judge a woman based on her performance. So connecting women to opportunities in business based on their performance, which is what we should all be judged on, right? The rules of business aren't necessarily fair. So our software will connect women, and also you could sell toilet paper, you could be a painter, you could sell sod, whatever it might be. Corporations are looking for more diverse suppliers, and we have the only piece of software that actually connects, vets, ranks, and then actually provides a digital report, because in 2025, reporting will be required by the government to prove for proof of performance for corporate diversity hiring, diversity jobs. So we are on the forefront of that. And then we can also use that software in sports to help properties connect to better sponsors, to help female athletes connect to more sponsors, because it's one of the most underserved markets of women in sports. We all know the Caitlin and Clark effect is happening now, but that's not happening to all women. It is a certain woman now, so we need more of that. And that's sort of what I'm doing now and how I got to this place.
Amazing. I have one follow-up question based on everything that you said. When you went to that marketing meeting with your overachieved presentation, that mascot that you came up with, was it a camel?
No, because I probably would have gotten hives. I can't. I think it was probably a superhero, because the name of the team ended up being a superhero name. So I think it was a superhero image. But like that experience walking in there, just being like, it's one of the tenets I believe in. Like I tell people even when they come to work for me, like you may not love what we're doing, and I really find it hard to teach effort. So I struggle sometimes, because when you work for a team, and I may not have been the person on the court, but there's a cadence. Like you are a good teammate, you high five. The best team, the best team is when your whatever bench is cheering louder is the better team, because they are a better organization. And so for me, like I wake up every day with that heart of a champion and trying to teach people that now. And I'm like, no, like when I worked with the team, like we stayed and we picked up the trash and we did this, and like it's hard to explain that effort. And so now to be able to align women with that, like again, like on their effort, I think that's great. But also, I also think like what I can give back is come, and where we are and where I am now is, come give us your best effort. Let me teach you everything I know. Like give me 100% of yourself, and I will make you the most prepared person at any table you sit at next. And for me, like sometimes that works out and sometimes it doesn't. I don't understand why people don't come every day and whatever it is that they do and want to be the best at it. Like I wouldn't come here and be like, oh, I want to be the most half-assed podcast guest I can be. Like, oh, I'm gonna, you know what I mean? Like I want to crush it, right? Like I want to jump for the ball, and that's why I always try to field like a basketball analogy, point guards. Point guards see the entire court. If I could at all times field a team of point guards in business, I would do that every single day. Point guards are aggressive. They want the ball. They are strategic in how they think, and so what's interesting about what we're doing now in software is when I met up with my team, I'm like, look, I can't undo how I'm wired, so I may not be for you. Like I tried to talk them out of it. I was like, I may not be for you, but like I think sports teaches a lot of things that can translate to business. And then I come to find out 81% of all women in the C-suite actually have played competitive sports. 54% of that 84 played at a D1 level. So I think,
Mm.
so for us, it really made sense then to, combine women in business and women in sports, because they're so driven. And so a lot of those analogies, and I think the wording that we use in our marketing and how we talk about and how we try to inspire women, I think that comes from a place of competitiveness in sports, because why wouldn't you want to be the best? Like, why I don't understand not running through the tape every single time.
What has been your drive for championing women? Since you've basically, it sounds like you fought yourself up the chain to some extent. You just always showed up authentically yourself. So, where did you see that disconnect and the desire to champion for women?
It's interesting. Like I was never against women, and I was never like I always thought that you had to show up and you had to like I had to, it was me against everyone. Like I had to compete against everyone else. It wasn't like me against other men or men were keeping me down or other women. It was like I had to outperform everyone was my mentality, and I didn't know that everyone didn't think that way. And that's not arrogance or ego in any way. I just thought, well, if every why doesn't everyone want to be the best? And I remember. In one of my days at Staples Center, one of the first meetings, it was brand new. The Lakers played there, the Clippers, the Kings, our arena football team and events. And I walked into a room and there was only one other woman. And I wouldn't have known except that woman was Jeannie Buss, the owner and president of the LA Lakers. And she said, bring a chair and put it next to me. She's going to sit next to me. And so like I was like, oh, we are the only ones in the room. Or and I was like, oh, so. And then when I started hearing a lot, down the road about Me Too and other things, like I knew, like even though I thankfully had not been victim or recognized being a victim of any of those things, it was my obligation to help the women behind me, like the next generation. Like how do I like kick down doors and break ceilings for them? And so that's what was so exciting about this opportunity, was to be able to help women build their own wealth. And whether that's business or sports, the rules for in business were set 100 years ago by men, set to like exclude women from the entire conversation. Now it's time to view the world equally through a women's lens and fix a lot of the crumbling industries we have in our country now. And I think letting women do that, I mean, it's funny, I was talking to someone yesterday, I'm like, women are like the group project. Remember the group project in school where you all got together and one person did the whole thing and never got the credit? That's how sometimes I feel like women are in business. And we need to stand up and get our own credit. And so thinking more about that outside of just sports, because in sports, there's a lot of women who are competitive. They played sports, you worked at other teams, you know to high five in the hall. If someone's pushing bobbleheads to the front door, you help that person. But I don't know that like teamwork always translates to business, because the competitive comes at others' expenses. And I think as women, we don't need to do that. And for me to stop that or to do my part, it's to help other women. If that makes sense. Or maybe that sounds like a big bucket of crazy, but that's what inspires me.
No, you're freaking speaking my language there. Like, I love some of the examples that you gave. And just to give you some insights, when Christy and I first met, we were the two only women in the room. And so that there was that instant connection and that instant realization that we do work in a male dominated industry. And what you were saying about sports is true to politics, is true to the corporate space. And there are more and more women who are not given a seat at a certain table that are starting to put their own tables together. And it needs to be a more popular practice, I think, moving forward.
I think so, and I think too that probably like what when I was coming up in the business or sports world, I think that we didn't talk about that we were the only women. I think there was an undertone of like that we should be competitive with each other instead of helping each other rise. And I don't think I noticed that at the time, but looking back, I'm like why in sports like there are just so many men. I'm like, oh, I work better with men. Like that wasn't the case. I think there weren't enough women to know who I worked better with or not, and I also think that there wasn't a connectivity. Like there weren't, like ERGs or whatever inside companies where it's like a women's group or like women of the team or whatever, where that's happening more now. Not enough, but we're like chipping away at that. So I think it was just like I was like the Labrador of the office. Like, hey, you want to work together? Want to work together? And without knowing that, like those other women were like, this is awesome. We should all be doing more of this. And I think we dampen our own voices sometimes when we shouldn't, because there's enough people trying to do that for us. And so if I can help that in what I'm doing going forward, again, connecting women to, bigger corporate contracts, more opportunities where they'll get more contracts based on their performance. If someone comes into the system and does a great job, they will get rewarded with more contracts. If they don't want to work and are not like driven, not performance driven, then, it might not be a place for them. We might not be for everyone. But it's you against you in our ecosystems. And I think it's a really great time to showcase what women really can do. And I'm glad that we can provide that opportunity.
You hit on you circled back around to the piece where I feel the same as you, as someone who's worked in corporate America. As women, we were always competing against each other versus figuring out how do we bond together and rise as a unit versus an individual as well. So I love that you made that full circle.
And I sometimes think like that competition got in the way of just showing people how smart we are in doing the work. Like there was like always like that undertone of like competition or like trying to fight through something instead of being able to really like exude like our talent, like have our talent come through and be the smartest person in the room or the one of the most talented. And so I'm hoping, like again, things are changing, the Caitlin Clark effect and women's sports and all these different conversations that are happening. I feel like it's not a moment, it's a movement, and the time is now. What we're doing necessarily in the world, and this is not political in any way, isn't working. Like industries need to be rebuilt, different conversations need to be had, and we need to look at that through the eyes of women and minorities, like really looking at the world from a different view, because the same way that's been done forever isn't going to help us succeed and excel in the future. So I'm hoping some of that's starting to rise to the top now, and we have better conversation, invite more people, and build a bigger table, with more people around that table with different voices.
Valerie, what made you go from working for a huge agency to founding your own marketing agency? Like what was that trigger that said, okay, I'm ready for it, let's go, let's build this thing?
There's parts of me that like I am, one of my first jobs I told you was a marketing coordinator, and it was half front desk. But I'm really like a marketing director at heart, like a VP of marketing at heart. Like I like to look like if I was a doctor, I'd want to be like a general practitioner because I like to look at all the parts and see like what's broken. We had a big client come to us, and he was a big celebrity. He's like, I flew me in somewhere, and he said, "We want you to tweet for us." And I was like, "Well, if that's what you want, like, then we're not really interested because I really think this is your problem." He's like, "Well, no, I'm going to pay you a lot of money to tweet for us." And I'm like, "No, you're probably going to pay us more to do all these other things." And that's what happened. And so for me, being in that digital space, I loved it. The experience was great, and the brand exposure and the international and the global opportunities were amazing. But I was in my digital bucket. So if I saw something over here, I was like, "Hey, we're not really driving revenue." Someday that client, aren't they going to ask us like if we're driving revenue? Like, if you're going to talk about revenue, don't come to the meeting. And I was like, "No, but I think we should probably talk about it." And then to come to find out that, one of our clients let us go because we weren't talking about revenue. And so I don't want to, I wanted the opportunity to be able to, like, if the baby's ugly, the baby's ugly, right? Like not every kid is cute. Let's talk about what parts aren't working and let's fix it. Like sweeping on the carpet is just like a ticking time bomb waiting to be discovered. So for me, it was just like authenticity. So our clients may hire us to do something, or in the agency world, hire us to do something, but that's not the problem. And I think that's why I've really built up trust, and that's why I really like working in this now space to connect women, because I can find out like what's working and what doesn't. And we're building this community called Unrivaled Women, because why wouldn't you want to be unrivaled? We really want it to be a place where we're building now. We launched at WeBank in March in Denver. We're really working on finding the right programming and the right experts. Like, what do women need to know in business? Like, I'm a great marketer. I was a terrible business owner. I mean, people like working for me and I enjoy it, but I shouldn't have been running a company. Like, I'm like, oh, I'm doing bookkeeping on a spreadsheet, and I think my attorney's great, but I don't know, he was great in case he hears this. Like, but I didn't know. It was like, I was all referral. Like, my business was like 90% referral because I had always done the right thing by people. Like, that's one of the things I'm most proud of, is like my reputation and the contacts that I have. People trust me, which I love, but I was like flying blind. Like, I didn't know what I was doing. Like, who should my attorney be? When do I do quarterly taxes? Is the government right? Can I fight the government on that? Like, I didn't know what I was doing. doing. And so what we're trying to do at Unrivaled Women is build a community that's like, how do we do these things? And we want to do it in a way where it's not insulting, but people are afraid to ask. When sometimes they're afraid to get asked, they get offended. Like, what do you mean you're telling me how to hire an accountant? You don't know me. You don't know everything. It doesn't have to be us as our team, but we are aligning the right experts with the right conversations to help women starting business wherever they are, like small, medium, or large businesses. You're coming to us to get corporate contracts to connect to them. So obviously there's some arrows like missing from your quiver. How do we help align that to help them gain wealth? And that's what we really want to do, is help women, because what wealth equals for women is power. The C-suite, I think in women, I've read somewhere, it's like 15 to 25% decline over the last 5 years. And it's going to take until 2030 to replenish those women, not get ahead, just to not be less bad. And so if we can help provide like some education, some community, like a safe space to talk about these things with Unrivaled Women, like I think that'll be amazing. Maybe we can close that gap faster. Scientifically, I'm not a scientist. I don't even know if that's possible, but going backward is not the right answer. We need to keep pushing forward. And I think we need to help each other and like have these communities where we can have these conversations, where we can help propel women forward so they can take back power and get back into the C-suite positions and run their own race and earn their own wealth.
Damn. You got a mission and you speak with such passion. I absolutely love it. By the way, I love all your analogies too. I might have to steal a couple of them.
I
I
think I
want
look at a
to,
lot of things through humor. I used to
yeah.
sneak out of the basketball games and take improv classes. And so like I
Oh.
have my radio on, I would give it to someone. I'm like, I have to go to improv tonight. Like, or I was in the show. Like, if something bad happens, like text me. But I'm gonna be in the show for an hour. And it really taught me to be fearless and like,
Mm.
stand in front of a PowerPoint that I've never seen before. Like if I've got the basic skills or I know what's happening in the room, but it really helped me to like read the room and be more confident in saying, I don't know what we're talking about, or hey, I'm not, I'm not an engineer, but here's what I think. Like, so I think some of those, like, I think humor is my default for getting through some of those tough things.
I love that. Talk to me more about the desire and how you've gone about building your team. What has that experience been like for you in building a team?
I'd say I think it's very interesting because when you're part of a bigger organization, you have a lot of support in terms of the vetting, the recruiting, sometimes even the clout. Like people want to go to more established organizations. So I was surprised when I had my own agency that people didn't want to come to our really cool office on the camp, like near the campus of Austin. Like everyone's like, how much are you going to pay? How many hot meals do you have a day? Do you have kombucha on tap? I had to Google that. So there's just things I didn't know, in this process. And so I would tell people like, look, like um, I love sports. I am well connected in the sports and entertainment industry. That is not an industry that is well represented in Austin. It wasn't at the time. I will teach you everything I know. Like these are the jobs that we have. I will help coach you. Like you have to know how to do all the jobs when you're starting something too, so you can help empower someone. And I don't pretend I was always great at it, but I think I got better over time. Like everyone needs reps at that. I'm like, but I will make you the most prepared person and I will open my Rolodex to you. So wherever you want to go next. And I still have former employees to this day, like, they wanted to go to a bigger agency. Like everyone wanted to have the same path I did. In the beginning, I was like, what do you mean they're leaving? And I couldn't sleep and I'd sweat about it and I'd writhe in pain. But I'm like, this is exactly what they're supposed to do. They came here, they got a taste of the business world. And again, we've had some people with us for a very long time, but they came and they saw and they wanted to do what I did. Um, it was very funny. One of our interns said, well, Valerie, how did you get on private planes, like with all these celebrities and these big sports moguls? You must have been a lot of fun. Like you probably knew how to party. And I was like, yes, I was fun, but that is not why I was on the plane. I was on the plane and in the rooms with Michael Jordan and other like athletes of note because I was trusted. I wasn't like, if everyone else was drinking, I had a Diet Coke. Like if everyone else was like trying to get crazy and like talk to athletes or their friends or whatever, like that wasn't my brand. That wasn't who I was. Like, and I probably could have had a lot more fun throughout my career, but I don't know that I would have gone down this amazing path that I've had, had I not taken it so serious. Even with Howard Stern, we'd have these huge broadcasts at the beach, and I was like, in my 20s and early 30s, and I was like, this is amazing. Everyone's like, this is like so fun. There's like drugs and alcohol everywhere, and I was just like, that's just not my scene. Like I'm in control of this whole 10,000, 20,000 person event. Like, and I wasn't. There were other people, but in my heart, like I thought I was responsible. So I had to be the most responsible person in the room. My bosses may have been drinking or whatever they were doing, but like that wasn't, they knew no matter what happened, like I was going to be the one solid figure. And so for me, if I can be that for other people, and even in our merged organization now, it's great not to have to own every piece. I get to own the community and the messaging and the sports component and that performance competitive like mentality and like ether that's through our agents or through our company now, through our software company now. I don't have to worry about staying up later. Like, oh, hey, is my spreadsheet right for bookkeeping? Did I put the mail out for the postman? Did we pay the electric bill? So I think, being able to I'm much better at hiring and finding the right talent now because it's kind of like the deck has been cleared for me, and we can hire the right people who really want to help change the world for women, which is feels so empowering.
I appreciate you sharing the piece about staying true to yourself and just not getting influenced by the setting that you're in, because I feel that a lot of business owners, whether they be women or men, get entrapped into these situations where they think that they have to act a certain way in order to get the end result that they're seeking. And I've always believed that authenticity and staying true to yourself was going to get you further than just playing a part at some point in time. And same goes for sales, right? When you're trying to pretend to be somebody you're not, it doesn't come out the same way, and it comes out as too salesy or too sleazy or whatever. So I really appreciate you sharing that, because that's a really important message to
I have
the
a
people
T-shirt that
listening
says
to us.
I have a T-shirt that says I'm not for everybody, and that's true. Like I'm not for everybody, right? Like talking to you now on your podcast is the same way we'd have coffee or breakfast or lunch or a giant pretzel or whatever, like whatever fun snacks we like. Um, like that's just who I am, and so anyone who was hiring me, and I think that's probably why, like I had a mentor I followed for many years. It's just like we knew how to work together. Like we knew the serious part and the fun part, and maybe I tell more jokes than I should, but like that's how I identify with people through humor or how I break down situations. And I couldn't be inauthentic. I look back at some of those times, and people had a lot more fun than I did, but they didn't go as far. Or they had a different path. Like it was almost like the short-term gratification of like doing shots on a bar, or like managing this event, going home, like getting some good sleep and getting back to work the next day. And I think I've always felt this responsibility to be like the most prepared person in the room. Like what I tell everyone I can do for them, I feel like if I can do my research and be there, and that doesn't mean I have to have all the answers off the bat, but I have to be knowledgeable enough and have the wherewithal to like understand all the parts of the job. And my whole thing every day, the biggest pressure I feel is I want to be the best teammate I can possibly be. It's not even a leader, it's like the best teammate. Like, what else can I do to help you? Like, what can I do to make you go home 5 minutes early? What can I do to make your day not start terrible tomorrow? What can I do so we get ahead? And I think that's also something hard to teach. It's like, hey, it's 5 o'clock, like the Flintstones whistle has gone off or whatever. I think work is different now. It's weird, like we're home or we're not home, or we're in the office or we're not, and those two areas blend. And I totally believe in that work-life balance, but I also know putting in that extra effort actually propels you against the competition. Again, that's why I like how we talk every day about performance inside our company, because the effort you put in is how you will gain your rewards and your hardware and your championship.
What has been your greatest challenge being an entrepreneur and business owner? And how do you work to overcome those challenges that you face?
I think something I noticed about myself, and again, it was, myself and then like a small team for a long time after being at bigger businesses. And now I'm part of a bigger organization again. So it's kind of interesting to kind of come full circle. But I think when you're an entrepreneur and if you have employees, you're responsible for everyone's Netflix account, their rent, their car payment. Like the decisions that you make at the top affects everyone. And you never want someone not to be able to pay their rent, buy their groceries, buy their roommate a birthday present. And I think that weighed really heavily on me, is like the greater good of the whole. It was never about me. It was about the greater good of the whole. And I think learning, if I could have learned maybe how to had better tools in my toolbox early on to deal with that, I probably could have scaled faster. And so I think not being afraid to tell people what you don't know, not maybe your team necessarily, but go out and find organizations or the SBA or some, a women's organization, other women in business. Because the most important thing, and I didn't build it soon enough, every woman should build a personal board of directors. It's someone that mirrors you, that tells you when you're screwing up, that cheers for you when you've done a good job. It's not necessarily your friends. It's people you trust in business. It could be friends. And also to not be afraid, your board of directors isn't forever. So this board can change over time, but finding someone like truth, like that will tell you truths or help you get where you're going. And it's not using someone. It's not, just advantageous for one person. It's the other people who want to help each other because, whoever you get on your board, they probably have that board of directors for themselves. So getting your own personal board of directors early would have helped me. Instead of waiting like 5 years in, I probably should have started much sooner than that. And I think that I could have been more steady. And I know not steady for my team, but steady for myself. I'm always not confident in looking at my spreadsheets. Are we going to make payroll? As you grow, there's nothing harder in the world than starting something from nothing. No one wrote me a check. It was the very first dollar I earned. I was in my house, like in the same room, working away. My husband's like, hey, we have money in the bank. You could probably hire someone and sleep. Like, try that. And he's like, I might want to see you once in a while. Maybe we could go on a vacation. I was like, I can't. We have to work. Like, it's never enough. And it wasn't about the money. It was like about doing the work that I promised that I would do. And I remember the first time I went to the Apple store, I hired 2 people, and we worked out of a co-working space. We had to put our coats on the chairs to save spots so we could sit at the same table. But I walked out of the Apple store carrying 2 Macs, and I thought I was going to get jumped because I'd never carried 2 brand new computers like that before. It's just like so funny. So all these little things, I'm like, oh, I could never. I had a board of directors, like an advisory board, not a financial board, and I'm like, oh, we should office together because I could never have an office by myself. And one day I signed a 5-year lease, and the next year I bought the building. Like, so all those things, if I could remove the fear and then it's just business, maybe normalize that a little more. If I could take that fear out of any female entrepreneur's heart, like you're always going to have it, but maybe have it a little less. And some of it probably gives you a little bit of an edge, but if I could have ratcheted that down for myself, I think maybe my blood pressure would have been down.
That's an incredible lesson. And I think we've had that in a recent episode this season. One of our guests said, the most important thing that a leader has to do on a daily basis is make decisions. And if you are not capable of making decisions, then leadership and running a company becomes extremely difficult.
Mm-hmm. And then being able to live with those decisions, right? Like, and like whether it was, how hard it was. So I think that was the agony that went with my decision making. If I could have relieved some of that. And again, but for me, it wasn't about me. Like when COVID hit, so we had just moved into our new office, our new 5-year lease office without my, board members. And we moved in July of 2019, and then COVID hits. And I bought 2 Monstera leaves, and now we have 12 Monsteras that are all like 12 feet tall. Like, and I have no planting skills. Like, I wore the camel suit. What do I know about plants? So, so I like had these plant children in the office. But when it hit, like, I didn't know what to do. I was like, okay, we're going to be okay. And the clients at Sports and Entertainment, we signed a huge contract the night before COVID hit with an entire league that would have changed our entire agency, and they stopped playing the next day. So the same parking lot that we shot, the top off the champagne bottle, we cried in. And not knowing what to do and knowing what to do. Nobody knew what to do. But when you're responsible for other people, or at least in my case, it was like, okay, how do I keep everyone whole? Okay, I'm not going to get paid. Can everyone take a 20% pay cut? I don't know how it works. I could lay you off and maybe that would be better for you, but I have no idea. And so kind of learning through that. And that's when I realized too, and I'm really excited about what we're doing now. There weren't any resources out there. Like, I followed other organizations on LinkedIn. I'm like, oh, they're posting some good stuff. Is that true? Or then the SBA forums got infiltrated by people who are trying, like tax people who are trying to take some of your EIDL or PPP money. Like, you didn't know who to trust, even though you're in an SBA forum. And so if I was like, and I didn't get tricked ever, but there's probably people who were like so desperate for information, like they would have drank sand if someone told them. And so, like, if I had those resources, and I think that's good at any time, like those same resources that I think there are huge gaps in today that I'm hoping that we will start to fill soon, here during our launch. I think those gaps are still here today. But if I'd had those earlier in my entrepreneur life, I think I also could have provided a steadier place for myself and for everyone involved. And I think there's part of me that was afraid to ask. I didn't want people to know what I didn't know. And I don't think I have like a tremendous like ego in any way, but I was so afraid that I didn't want it to go away. I loved my team. I loved what we were doing. I loved our clients. I never wanted to let them down ever, even at my own expense. If we made a mistake on something, like I would kill myself to make sure that we made it right. And so, I think having those resources, It was like, be an entrepreneur. You want, like, during COVID, everyone's like, we're taking care of our team, we're sending care packages, or whatever we're doing. And I was like, who's taking care of the leaders? Because we didn't know any more than anyone else. And I didn't want to be selfish in saying that. And I can only really talk about that looking back at that. But it was like, gosh, it would have been great to have someone helping take care of me. And again, it was new for everyone. It wasn't unique to me in any way. But I, listened to a lot of leadership stories and CEOs of much greater companies. One of my old bosses is the CEO of Indeed.com. He's one of the most measured people I know. And his always words of wisdom and trying to connect people through human emotion. And I would like listen to some of his podcasts and their fireside chats. And I was like eating popcorn or whatever I was doing. We're all in our leisure wear at home. And I was just trying to get wisdom from anywhere. And I think there's a lot of gaps in that for women. And now there's a lot of disparate women's groups doing that, and they're not connected. And none of those groups, as good as they are, and there's great ones that I follow, no one's actually connecting women to money and wealth. And so hopefully by partnering with a lot of these organizations and putting ecosystems in place where their members can be connected to some of these contracts too, hopefully we can connect the gap between women, which I think would be really neat.
If you were to tell someone who's running a business and who is a leader today, like, who should be on their board of directors? Who should be these people at the table that are helping support them on a day-to-day basis?
Their actual board of directors or their personal board?
Their personal board of directors. You talked about that personal board of directors, those people that you can trust.
So nobody vested in your company.
Mm-hmm.
I think it can be people who are your peers in an industry. So for example, one of my board of directors is someone who'd always been my boss, like in a higher level marketing role my entire career. And I followed him for a very long time. Whatever he said to me mattered. He'd known me the longest. Like people, not like your grandpa because they have to love you, or your dad because they have to love you, but people in business that you've admired, that you've liked doing business with. It could be even someone that you competed with. Maybe you didn't necessarily like them, but you knew they were the smartest person in the room. Finding those people and telling them, here's what I'm trying to achieve. Here are my goals. Here's the mountain I'm going to climb. Can you help me? Where can you provide guidance to me? And are you available to me? Because a lot of people will tell you yes. And then when you're like, hey, can I talk to you? They're like, I can have lunch with you like after the summer when vacation season's over. That is not a good personal board of directors. That is not a good, it's the person that you could call in the middle of the night and say, I don't know how I'm going to make payroll. Like, what are my options? I think I'm crumbling, or I'm not sure I can do this. I don't know how to solve this problem. It's that person who's like, it's almost like that joke, like, that's a terrible idea. I'll pick you up in 10 minutes. Like, that's the kind of person you need. That's the worst thing I've ever heard. I'll be right there. Like, those are the types of people. And I think they're peers. It's not like, it doesn't have to be your friend. It's not someone who comes to your birthday party or like, is the godparent to your kid. It's people in business who know where you want to go and are also equally driven, or people who have been in business, people later in the stage of their careers who have seen a lot of things. And they're like, look, like, let me avoid, that's how I feel now. Like, let me help you avoid the pitfalls I made, or here's some things I learned, or here's something I know nothing about, but you should look into this. I think those people with more experience, those you compete with, those you admire, and those who have had a path that you're interested in following. That probably sounds like a big bucket of crazy, but
I've heard no buckets of crazy, except for maybe spending the summer in a camel suit. That might be the bucket of crazy on this one.
I gotta tell you though, I never thought and like you got matched with a radio station, and I wanted to be at the kids station, and the one was Camel Country 108, and it set me on a journey I'll never forget. So
I love.
I didn't get the one I picked, but it was the one I needed. So
there you go. I love that. You just gave some really great advice around creating a personal board of directors, which I think is extremely valuable. And Aggie and I, as business advisors, we kind of see ourselves as sitting at that table with our clients as well, because we can help them, support them, like you said, in those moments of crisis. They know how to get a hold of us, and they do. Right. And it's so valuable. And it's extremely valuable to bring that to them because, like you just said, when you were talking about COVID, I was just like, yep, I had 150 employees and I had to sit there and figure out, what am I going to do? Who can I bring back? Who can I keep on? What is the best situation for them? Right. And then I remember sitting and working, 15 hours a day, dealing with managing my business and the fallout of COVID. So, all of that is really real.
I remember losing a lot of clients, and I spent like 20 hours a day at my desk because I thought that's what I had to do. When really, like, that probably didn't bring my best self. Like, again, no one knew what to do, so I don't not sleep over this, but I should have like gotten some fresh air. I should have gone in the
Mhm.
backyard. I should have like walked around and not sat in the seat for 20 hours. But I thought like if I worked harder, I could fix it because I didn't understand it.
Right.
And that sounds crazy, but like it was my first time owning a business. It was my first time having this building. We're driving to work. There was like nobody on the street. I live a couple miles from the office, not even. And I remember seeing a building boarded up. I'm like, do I need to board up? Like, why are we boarding up? Like, what's going on? And then I remember seeing a
Yeah.
guy walking over and over into a fence, like in The Walking Dead. I'm like, oh my God, is that COVID? Like, turns out it was just like some guy who had crack or something like in the hood. But I was like, wait, is that what happens when you get COVID? Like, oh my God, I'm not getting out of my car. So like that combination of like personal, I don't know what's happening in the world. And there were a lot of like political issues on the table. So like there's breaking news constantly. It was like we were in full blown cortisol like attack like the whole entire time. Because if it wasn't something political, it was something disease related. There are no masks. Why don't we have hand sanitizer? We're eating Tide Pods. Like there's so much going on during that time. Like there wasn't and nobody knew, so I guess there's no fault. But like no one really put a stake in the ground, like, okay, everyone calm the F down. Like
Yeah.
we need to like dig in and we need to like ground ourselves. We don't know what this is. Like there was really not a voice that did that. And so that's what I think about a lot too now. Like if something comes up, like it's not it's not a crisis. And what I did find, it was right before COVID and I went back into it after COVID, is I work with a gratitude coach. And that
Mm.
sounds crazy to me, but this woman, one of my first clients was when I was like, I came back to Austin and I didn't know what I was going to do. My gym's like, can you help us with marketing? I'm like, sure, that'd be fun. Like, I liked them. They were nice. That led to a lot of other work, which was really interesting. But they had these seminars, and this woman came in and she wrote the Book of Joy. And I like, oh gosh, I have to go on a Saturday and take pictures of this, like joy, like whatever, just work your ass off. Like that was, I had this total attitude. And she came in and she was like, you are resisting this. And I'd been there like 5 minutes. I'm like, no, no, I'm sure to take pictures. Like, I'm okay, sweetie. We don't, like, I don't need this. And the more she talked, I realized that not being grateful for the things that I had were actually deflecting good things that were coming my way. I was missing opportunity because I was
Mm.
so grounded and worried about the bad things. And she told a story about a physicist. I can't remember his name, but you can Google this. I swear it's true. This was her story that got me hooked. A physicist took 2 jars of rice and sealed them in ball glass jars. One they yelled at, all negative words, screw you, you're stupid, you can't do anything. The other one complimentary. Within weeks, the sealed jar that was yelled at turned green and moldy. The one that had been complimented was still perfectly used and ready to eat. And it just talked about like these things like wavelengths and energy, and I was like, whatever energy, like I'm back in California. But when I started to change my attitude about that, like I saw things coming towards me. And one of the things that came in that, and she also taught me that whatever is said to you is just information. You're the one, like I'm the one who's adding emotion to it. So you
Mm.
could say, Valerie, you're the worst ever, you suck. But you could say it with zero tone, but I would take it in as, oh my God, I suck, I'm the worst person, and I start to like deflate. Or I could be like, oh, she's crazy and move on. And so you think about a lot of people who don't let things affect them, it's because they are at neutral. Like they don't let the highs get too high, and they don't let the lows get too low.
Mm.
There's another company, Limitless Minds, that does an amazing job with neutral thinking. And so I started adapting this, and I hired um, our first talent client. It was an Olympian catcher who won the World Series with the Boston Red Sox. His name is Ryan Lavarnway. Today, he's one of my best friends. And I was like, here's what I'm doing. I want to represent you. Or no, here's what I'm doing. Do you think this is good for athletes? And he's like, I just typed to my agent that they are fired and you're going to handle all my off-field business because no one's ever spoken to me like this before. But Ryan's whole thing was I keep a neutral mindset. So I remember going to see him for the first time and I was crying. My husband's like, why are you crying? You love baseball? And I'm like, because this is what it feels like when your dream comes true. I'm going to see my first athlete that I represent in a baseball game in Nashville. And he's looking for me in the stands. The whole time he's looking for me. And I'm like, oh, who am I? And after the game, I asked him, like, how was it? Like, I saw you had to walk that guy back to the plate. I thought he was going to fight your pitcher. He's like, it doesn't matter. It's just a game. It's my job. And I was like, no, let's talk about it. Like, you won. It was awesome. He's like, I just did my job. He's like, do you want to go have some barbecue? And so it was just like taking things in stride. It's like something you have to work on every single day. And that gratitude coach, like, changed my life. Like, I need to actually, like, I should go see her more often because this is just information. She talks about you yell at someone in the car, you're yelling and you flip someone off because they cut you off. Is that really going to solve the situation? You're never going to see that driver again. And you're the one who feels bad. And when I started doing that, like, it's like a magnet. You attract what you put out there. And when I can really concentrate and flip that switch, my entire universe changes. And so being able to, and it's not woo woo, it's not something weird because I'm totally not like that. I'm like, just work hard. Like my dad was always like, work hard, grind yourself into the ground, and maybe you'll be successful. And so that was my attitude. But when I started like letting go and like seeing, I saw things that were like in my orbit that I never saw before. So I think as business owners, yes, you have to stay totally focused and give it your all and perform. But I think you also can't do it in a way that you are blind to seeing how the world is really occurring around you and opportunities that are coming to you that you might not see.
Well, I, for one, I'm totally woo woo. But a lot of the things that you said resonated with me because I think attitude is everything. I was just telling a client this morning that when you operate in a cone of scarcity, you are repelling anything that's coming to you because your lack of confidence and your deflation is kind of mirrored through your tone, through the way you show up, et cetera, et cetera. So it's kind of like once you're in scarcity, you stay in scarcity. And the beginning of my career as a business advisor was kind of like that. I was in scarcity because I was trying to ramp up fast, maybe too fast. I was choosing the wrong clients. It was not gaining traction. And then I got myself a coach as well. And that changed my perspective and it completely shifted my attitude more to that neutral tone that you were talking about, but mostly as well bringing out my confidence. And that's when things started shifting for me. So totally believe in what you just shared.
And to your point, what something that you just said really resonated with me is when you're starting something, you think you have to say yes to everything. Because what if something else doesn't come along? So I was saying yes to everything, and maybe we weren't a good fit. I remember the first time I let a client go, I deliberated over it for like months. And I was like, it's bad for the organization, it's bad for the team. The team is telling me it's bad, but I'm like, what if we can't replace this? I remember that first time letting something go, and I had like 3 other clients in a couple of weeks. I was so focused on managing something that maybe wasn't going to be manageable that I couldn't see that maybe there were other paths. And everybody is not for everyone, not just me. I mean, particularly, I can only speak for myself, but everyone's not a good fit for each other either. Whether that's a personal board of director, a client, a friend, a neighbor, whatever. Like you don't all have to like each other, but you have to know what you like. You have to set your own bar for tolerance, like what you will tolerate. And that wasn't the last client I fired. And the same was with employees. Like it's hard when you're new, you hire and you think you've hired the best person. I had someone that I had to let go once, and my advisory board, I like, did you do it today? I'm like, no. They're like, every day you have to write the check for her final payroll. And you have to do this. And the day I did it, I threw up 3 times. I sweat through 2 shirts. I had to change my outfit. And by the time I let that person go, I had probably an 8-inch stack of checks I'd written for months because I couldn't do it. And it was the first time in my own company. Like I've had to, like with an HR person in a big company where it just like swoops in and you're just part of it. And you're like, oh, like, but doing it yourself, I researched how to terminate someone with like gratitude and like you're nurturing, like, and the person said to me, this is the best firing I've ever had. And I was like, you don't have to make me feel better. Like, and it wasn't about me, but it was like that empathy of like, this isn't going to be good. But no, I also believe no one should suffer. Like they shouldn't suffer. They knew they were suffering. The rest of the team was suffering. I was suffering. And so trying to figure out that balance between like coaching someone in or like that no one should suffer. I think that's something that almost like comes with being an entrepreneur. It's hard to tell someone because you don't know. Every personality is different. And some of those things are just hard, but everyone's not always for everyone. And you got to be okay with that too.
Valerie, the words of wisdom. Well, one, you speak really fast. So I think people are going to have to slow this down because to get all the nuggets that you gave, which were above and beyond. Thank you so much for sharing your story, your passion, your drive, and how you want to make a huge change and impact, especially for women in business. With that being said, how do people find you and learn more about what it is you're doing and stay connected?
Sure, you can find our website unrivaledgroup.com or realbusiness.ai. And I am Valerie Tyson on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Valerie, this has been such a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time to spend with us today and empower our listeners to go out there and be a badass and build a business that they feel passionate about.
Well, thank you for having me and creating this great space. This is a lot of fun. Thank you for having me.
Hey,
Absolutely.
you're a badass, and you crushed this podcast.
Thank you. I hope so. Well, hopefully, like everyone will listen to the end. So we'll see. We'll see how far. You'll have to let me know
Oh,
what
I'm
they.
sure. All right. See you, ladies.
Bye.